Okay. So I want to warmly welcome everyone to the Percolator Quarterly Idea Exchange. It's wonderful to have you all here today. We have two really exciting topics today. So I'm going to go right into a little housekeeping and a preview of what we've got queued up. So first, we're going to celebrate. Are folks in the mood to celebrate today? Hopefully so. Yay. We are going to be celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Percolator. Can't even believe I'm saying that, but we started in 2014, 10 years ago, and we have some really fun things queued up for a little celebration. And then we're going to talk about what's next and the next stage of national supports for memory cafes. We'll be showing you a draft of the EMC Squared National Strategic Plan for Memory Cafes. I'm just going to take a moment and mute folks so we don't get background sound, and I'll ask if everyone can keep themselves on mute if you're not talking. Thank you. I appreciate that. So those are the two items for today's meeting. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, December 11th, same time frame, 1:30 to 3:30 Eastern. And we do alternate between Wednesdays and Thursdays because we know some of you have cafes on one day or the other, and that way more can participate. So December will be a Wednesday, and we are going to hear from Pima, Arizona's Council on Aging's 7 memory cafes. So we're going to hear a presentation about this amazing network of 7 cafes that the Pima Council on Aging and their partners have created. And we will have another update from EMC Squared on the next phase of implementation of these national resources for memory cafes. So I would love it if folks could actually hang on before I ask you to do something, a little housekeeping. So I am recording this meeting and we'll be posting the recording at the Percolator webpage. Usually takes about a week. It's great to see you on screen if you're comfortable activating your video. Please do keep your audio muted unless you're speaking. Please use the chat anytime or the hand raise function anytime if you want to be recognized. And I am going to do my best to monitor that. So this is my request for you. Please say hello in the chat. Please share where you're joining us from. Thank you. It's always great to see. Apologize for my voice. So, as you can see, we have people from all over Wisconsin, Arizona, Massachusetts, Washington, Wisconsin, Georgia, Missouri, Vermont, Kentucky, Illinois, and on and on. So please keep those coming. Thank you. A few updates before we dive into the first topic of the day. The Percolator webpage is familiar to many of you. For those who are new, we have our toolkit in English and Spanish, tip sheets on promoting your cafe, funding your cafe, vetting guest facilitators, a leadership guide that we created with Dementia Action Alliance, public service announcement videos in English, Portuguese, and Spanish, and lots of other goodies that are all free on that page. So check it out. I do send out monthly What's Percolating e-newsletters with help from my colleague Jessica Roque, who's here today. And I love to share your news. So please feel free to email me articles or videos that have been created to promote your cafe, and we will share them. It's great to see what different cafes are doing and also to get ideas about how to spread the word. So a few more updates here in Massachusetts. A company called Art Pharmacy is rolling out nationally, which is a social prescribing model. It's working with insurance companies and actually prescribing for people to go to programs like memory cafes. So if you're in Massachusetts and you haven't done so already, I recommend that you sign up as an art and culture provider with Art Pharmacy. And Jessica, if you would put that in the chat, the link for that, that'd be great. And I will also mention in Massachusetts, please let me know if there are changes to your listing in the cafe directory. However, we will be transitioning to a new national directory soon, and that will be discussed in part 2 of today. Applications are open for the 17th Annual Innovations in Alzheimer's Caregiving Award Programs. You see the link on screen. Caregiver.org is Family Caregiver Alliance's website where you can find the information. The application closes October 9th. And Drea Douglas has shared an update that she is going to be presenting at the Association of Rural and Small Libraries, a program called Diary of a Memory Cafe. So if you're coming to that program later this, actually on September 14th, so Saturday, give her a holler. Her email is on screen there. That's in Springfield, Massachusetts. One other announcement is I am hosting a virtual symposium wearing my other hat, which is a coordinator of Dementia Friends Massachusetts, and would love for you to join us. Dementia Friends is a public awareness program that a lot of memory cafes find useful for training volunteers and getting out the word to the public. And this will be a program focusing on brain health for all communities. We will have community partners from 9 different linguistic and cultural communities, advocates who are living with dementia, public health, and research folks talking about brain health and how to communicate about it. Does anyone else have a brief update to share with the network? Please use the hand raise function if you can, or if you're not able to do that, you could just unmute, and I'll just allow another moment. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so we're going to move on.
Beth, can I interrupt? The video panel that you have of us is showing in the bottom left corner of the shared screen.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay,
I mean,
thank
just
you.
a little snippet of it, but just so you
How's
know.
that? Is that
Yeah,
better?
that's good.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. I always appreciate that kind of feedback because my strength is not on the technical side. So thank you. So let's move on, and we are going to start our celebration. Very, very excited that we have arrived at this moment of 10 years of this ragtag awesome band of folks that has grown year to year and really been such a place of sharing. So I'm a cat person, so I can't resist having a cat here to celebrate our birthday with us. And I want to say that while this is 10 years of running the Percolator, it's really a celebration of memory cafes overall. The Percolator's role has been watering the grassroots. You all are the grassroots. There are amazing and unique memory cafes throughout the world, and the Percolator has had the the privilege of really just being part of this growth and movement. So here's what we're going to do that's fun. We are going to celebrate in a few ways. Have to have cake for a celebration. We are going to have 7 Memory Cafe moments. So 7 of you are here and have offered to share a special moment, a favorite moment from your Memory Cafe. We are going to have a cafe trivia game, and then we'll culminate with a short video that Jessica has skillfully compiled from the photos and videos that many of you have sent in. So let me get us started. So we're going to start with a Memory Cafe moment. Do we have Ida here with us?
I am here, yeah.
Wonderful, and we can hear you. So would you like to go ahead and share your Memory Cafe moment?
Sure. We have memory cafes once a month. We have some regular attendees who come fairly often. So we were having one focused on arts and crafts. We had a area quilter who was doing a quilting demonstration, among other things. And as we were having discussions about sewing and quilting, one of our gentlemen with dementia spoke up and said, "I made kilts." So I asked him more about that, and he and his wife talked to us about how they have Scottish heritage. He learned how to make authentic kilts. He made kilts for all the men in his family. Our next Memory Cafe was on the theme of a trip around the world, and we invited people to bring mementos or anything that they wanted. This couple came back and they brought a kilt that he had made and were able to show it to everyone. So that was pretty fun and really unexpected. And those are the kind of moments that I love that happen at our programs.
That's so wonderful, Ida. I love that story and the image that we all have of this gentleman proudly sharing something that, you know, is part of him and part of what makes his life unique and vibrant, and that this was a place that he could really bring that forward and connect with others. And that is what memory cafes do. And often people don't have another place that they can share like that. So that's really special. Thank you, Ida. So now we're going to get our first trivia question. We're going to mix it up between cafe moments and trivia questions. So are you all ready? And I'll read the question, and then since we're a big group, I would recommend that folks use the chat to respond. I'm having trouble seeing the chat in my other device here. Here we go. All right, so here is the first question. Where was the first Alzheimer's Cafe? It was called Alzheimer's Cafe, located, and when did it start? So go ahead and put your answers in the chat. Ah, I see UK, 1989, a good guess. Holland, 1997, Holland, the Netherlands, 97, and another England and more Netherlands. So the Netherlands have it. The answer is Leiden, Holland. I've never been there, but the photos that I could find make it look really, really lovely and charming. And several of you nailed it regarding the year, which is impressive. It was 1997. So very good. And it's great to just remember that and think about this whole sweep of time and how much the model has grown and evolved during that time. And here's a bonus question. Who created the first Alzheimer's Cafe? Does anybody know? And if you get the spelling right, and yes, the Netherlands and Holland, one and the same, or they may not, you know, I plead ignorance here. But we are talking about the same place. And Rebecca has nailed it. I don't know why I'm having trouble scrolling through my chat here. I see actually a couple people got it. Kristen and Rebecca and Susan, Dr. Beer Meeson and Heidi, yep. And if anybody here speaks Dutch and can correct my pronunciation, I would love that. But there's a photo of him with the neon sign that says Alzheimer's Cafe. And he did this in his role as a psychiatrist working with older adults. And a quote from him is that the Alzheimer's Cafe is an informal way to make contact with each other, to receive a consultation and feel at home. And there's that phrase, feel at home, that I think resonates with all of us. In the Netherlands, patients feel they have a place to just be. This way, the patient and their family don't have to deny or avoid the illness. And you hear some medicalized language there, which makes sense given the context that this was coming from. And I think over time, cafes have evolved to really try to move away from some of the medical terminology. However, in the Netherlands and many parts of Europe, people actually can meet with a nurse at a memory cafe and actually have a memory screening or a cognitive screening. So it fits for that context. One of the other guesses was Dr. Jette Ludwig, and that's a great guess because Dr. Ludwig is a pioneer of memory cafes in the US. So hang on to that little tidbit of information because it may be useful later. So now we are going to have another memory cafe moment, and Nancy Marks was unable to come due to a last minute situation, but Sam Goodrich is here in her place. Sam, are you able to unmute?
I am. Hello,
All
everyone.
right, thank you. So Sam has a memory cafe moment for us.
So Nancy shared this with us. Nancy Marks is a teaching visual artist in Massachusetts, and she shared this story. I was leading a memory cafe with the focus on making abstract collage. As a part of this, I often show a PowerPoint with examples so that people can see that anything goes with collage making. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw one participant take paper and start folding it into complicated paper airplanes. He was so engaged and focused. When I asked him about it, he said he was designing some kind of plane for NASA, and he explained jet propulsion to me. It was amazing. Even more amazing was that later his caregiver told me he used to work at MIT designing jets. It was so beautiful to see him so present in his past.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you to Nancy. What a great story. And, you know, I think it's really special that memory cafes are facilitated in such a way that people can respond from memory and reminiscence, or they can respond from imagination, and that it's all good. And it's really important to be able to connect with specifics about one's career, one's life, and also just with one's humanity. And so a person might imagine and share something that didn't happen in actual life, but that is resonant to their spirit. So thank you for sharing that. On to another trivia question. This one I think might be too easy, but we'll see. I had to throw it in there. What is a percolator? Does anybody know what the actual tool is? Coffee pot. Everybody's got it. Yes, coffee maker. That's right. It's a coffee maker, and it's also a free resource network for memory cafes that started in 2014. And the symbolism being it's how you make coffee, but it's also a concept of ideas bubbling. So you all got that. And this actually is a cover slide from our very first kickoff meeting, October 29th, 2014, where I had this little animation of a percolator that I was very proud of at the time. I'm just checking the chat. I see some great great additional comments. Kristen, you had a funny story about a percolator. Feel free to unmute and tell us if you like. I'll just wait a minute in case Kristen wants to tell us her percolator story. And Ida says the coffee kiosk at the library where she works is called the percolation desk. Oh, can't unmute. Okay, suffice it to say the coffee came out like tar. I hear you. I've been there. And Cynthia owns several old-fashioned ones that her grandmother used daily. That's very cool. Oh, John has an interesting question. Is this really a percolator that we see on screen? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But you get the idea. It symbolizes one in any case. Well, thanks for delving into the technicalities of percolators with me. We're going to go ahead to another Memory Cafe moment. And I wonder if David could unmute and share his Memory Cafe moment.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Torres. I am a options counselor at PIMA Council on Aging here in Tucson, Arizona. We are one of the AAAs here in Arizona. So on Wednesday, August 23rd of last year, Dementia Capable of Southern Arizona and PIMA Council on Aging, in collaboration with Southern Arizona Senior Pride, hosted drag performers to our Memory Cafe. It was actually very exciting. It was this was probably our most well-attended and best participating Memory Cafe that we had so far. Despite the political climate for this kind of community, it was very, very popular. It was very, the feedback that we got was all positive. There was a lot of new participants that had never seen a drag show before. So it was very exciting, and hopefully we'll get to do another one soon.
That's excellent, David. Thank you. And I know that you co-sponsor with Southern Arizona Senior Pride. There's their logo.
Yeah.
And Dementia Capable Southern Arizona. So what an awesome story. What an awesome activity to do, and how great to hear that it really worked beautifully. John comments that they had belly dancers at a cafe that he led, and it was equally engaging. So it's just great to bring people together and to make sure that everyone can see themselves in the cafe as well. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from David at the December Percolator meeting, where he and his team from PIMA Council on Aging are going to share about the cafe at the Katy and the 6 other cafes that they run. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And now on to cafe trivia. So now we're going to go from the very origins of memory cafes and talk about how they crossed the pond to the United States. And I'm going to pose this question. What were the first memory cafes in the US? And I'll give you a hint. The year was 2008. And there were 2 different localities, 2 different people who started them. So I see a guess about California. Always a good guess, but in this case, wasn't California. I see Santa Fe. Yep, that's one of them. And it wasn't Arizona. Yes, Minnesota, Lori LeBay, you got it. So we got, yep, some of you got it exactly. It was Yitta Luckfig's Cafe in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Lori LeBay, Arthur's Memory Cafe in Roseville, Minnesota. And here you have pictures of each of those. And I also want to show Yitta's book, the Alzheimer's and Memory Cafe handbook, which you can order. And yes, Susan, Susan McFadden is a rinker, no fair, because she wrote a best practice guide and has published books that recount the Memory Cafe movement's history. But it's okay to cheat, because honestly, this is just for bragging rights. I wish I had some prizes to give out, but I don't. So I don't mind if people cheat. Great. And I just want to say, I just want to appreciate all the incredible people, and we're only naming a few, who have really helped memory cafes take root and spread and develop throughout the years. So what we're going to do now is go to another memory cafe moment, this time to Illinois. And Nazneen, can I invite you to unmute and share your story? Just give Nazneen a moment to unmute. Let's see.
Okay. Can
There you are. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. I'm really excited. So let me introduce a little bit what we do. My name is Nazneen Sailawala, and I am being coordinator for Memory Cafes, God knows when. It's been years, 10 plus years. And I'm also a psychologist. Our organization is called the American Association of Retired Patients in Illinois. And we serve some social, referral, and a lot of older adult activities, including mental health and memory cafes. I just want to take a moment and explain you why we are unique. We're unique because we serve the South Asian American community in the Chicagoland, and which has been underserved due to various cultural, dietary, the language barriers, also especially to our Alzheimer members and their caregivers. We have been seeing this need for a long time. So we started as of our memory cafe. Today, I want to share a really good story which has uplifted, in fact, our memory cafe a lot, which is about a lady who became a widow, and her husband used to come to memory cafe for at least 6 to 7 years, and we actually saw him going through the entire process with us. So since our memory cafe, I would say, is really a beacon of inclusivity in the suburban areas. Reason why we speak 5 languages, and we make sure everybody is welcome. So let me share a moment that captured the heart of what we do as Amara's Memory Cafe and why. So this story is about, like I said, it's about a widow lady who has been with us for a long time. And after losing her husband to Alzheimer's, she was left feeling quite isolated and she was lost. She was struggling to find a sense of belonging in a world that seemed to have left her behind. She was all by herself. And the language, the biggest barrier that she had was a language barrier she faced. And that made her isolation more deepened because she did not have anybody else to speak the language. Her kids were speaking mostly English. And so when she first came to Memory Cafe, her grief, we started inviting her. And when she came first to our Memory Cafe, her grief was fresh. She was not sure how she would fit in, but slowly something really incredibly happened. And what happened was she began to start forming connections with others who would come there. She would share her similar experiences in her space. She talked about where She came to our memory cafe and she never had to worry about language as a barrier. She found new friends. So what happened was she found comfort in those friendships and shared understanding of her loss and the memories that she had connected all these years. These connections give her, by coming to our memory cafe, one of these days, she came and she sat down with me and she shared this, that, all the strength and the moments of reflection that I had spent with my husband, coming to your memory cafe, all those really good, precious memories, which are no long, which I have it now, but that I spent with my husband has, whenever I come back, it reflects back, and it kind of gives me a strength. It gives me that, the days that we laughed together, she would come and tell us, oh, remember, we used to joke about this, we used to joke about that. And all this happens in her comfort of her own language. We have volunteers, including myself, that speak her language. And she slowly, we saw him in 6 weeks time, how she came out of the depression, that mild depression that she was coming. And I think that now she is our regular attendee and one of our greatest advocates. She encourages everyone living with dementia to come and join our memory cafe, knowing her firsthand experience and the transformation. And every time when we watch her smile, laugh, and engage with rest of the members, it reminds us a hope and hope for all the people out there, and the importance of creating spaces like this, where people don't just survive, but genuinely live, connect, and find the joy again. So, and that is what the power of community is. So on behalf of her, I'm sharing this story with you, that how important it is for a marginalized community where we speak all different languages, 9 languages in South Asian, and we provide 5 in our memory cafe, and are fluently. So we are a group of 13, 14 people, and this is one of those ladies that help us remind every day the power of memory cafe. So thank you.
That's amazing, Nazneen. What a beautiful story. And I think so many people who run a memory cafe have seen a scenario where a partner of a longtime attendee feels so connected to the other people in the program that they continue to attend. Their role might evolve in different ways, but they really have that root with the program. And thank you for sharing how valuable it is to have access to a program in your own language. I wonder, since we've got you here, and this challenge of how to serve people in multiple languages is always one that we come back to. Can you share with us how you're able to provide services in, I think you said 5 languages? Do you have staff or volunteers who speak different languages or are multilingual? Kind of how do you do that?
Yeah, sure, I would love to. So we are bilingual, and we have volunteers. So we recruited 2 volunteers that speak 2 languages, and the other volunteer speaks the other 3 dialects and the language. But myself, I'm there every time, and I speak 5 languages.
Mm-hmm.
So we always have people who can speak, but other members also speak similar languages. So we make sure the people who attend these, they have a friend who speaks besides me and besides the volunteer, that they can interact, they can share their experiences day-to-day basis. So we try to make sure that as many bilingual, we focus on that. And one of the that I would like to share with everyone here is one of the activities that gel us all together is a music therapy in our cafes. We do lots of music therapies because it's been scientifically research has been done that how music can help with our memory. So that is one of the things that we do, and we recruit people from different organizations to share our information, and that's how we are all connected. And while I'm saying this, I do want to say, Beth, one more thing. So when we were talking about the Percolator, you would not believe in our memory cafe, and we always remember of this Percolator program, and we serve our tea in a percolator. Just and yes, and South Asian is very big on tea, so we do use a full use of percolator in both ways. So
That's
just
wonderful.
wanted to share.
That's great. Nazneen, thank you so much for bringing this beautiful story of your participant to us and sharing with us about some of the logistical details of how you're able to provide a memory cafe in 5 languages that is truly inspiring and helpful and instructive to all of us. And great to hear about your use of a percolator for tea. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you again.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're ready for another trivia question. I hope everybody has their thinking caps on. I'm curious if this one will be easy or hard. I'm not sure. We'll see. So, which US state currently has the most memory cafes? What do you think? I see Wisconsin, I see Massachusetts, I see Wisconsin, Minnesota, lots of Massachusetts. Well, I'm going to give you a clue. Here's one clue. Here's another clue. And so Anne is on the right track here. Anne is a proud cheesehead. And one more, a badger. The answer is Wisconsin. So go Wisconsin. And I think that Wisconsin has many structures that have helped to foster this. And I'll just mention Susan McFadden's work with the Fox Valley Memory Project, the Library Memory Project. I believe Angela Myers is here, which has really helped to spread cafes through large numbers of public libraries, and also the Dementia Care Specialist Program that Wisconsin, see, look at me wanting to say Massachusetts, but it's not, it's Wisconsin. Wisconsin originated, which involves having a staff person in every county and federally recognized tribal government who is able to run a memory cafe, run dementia friend sessions, provide navigation, and many other really important tasks. And as Anne points out, the Bader Philanthropies has been a crucial funding partner. So it takes all these ingredients. And yes, Kathy says, come smell our dairy air. Okay, I just got that as I read it out loud. Anyway, we are really proud of Wisconsin and hoping that the rest of the country will follow your lead in many ways. So the next Memory Cafe moment, is Dorothy here to unmute and share your story?
I am.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. So I'm from the Chicagoland area, and our Memory Cafe is a collaboration between a chapter of the AKA sorority, and they have a building in Woodlawn, one of the neighborhoods in Chicago. And I'm a representative of the Chicago Hyde Park Village. We are part of the Village movement, which has about actually started in the Boston area, but has about 300 different groups throughout the nation. So if you haven't connected to the Village movement, I highly recommend it. It's really about empowering people to support each other so they can age in place. So sorry for that aside, but I think that's really important in this context. So we got together and we started doing a memory cafe. We are just at a year's years of experience under our belt. And we lost in April one of our regular participants. It was a sudden accident. So we really just wanted to make sure we acknowledge that, because the person would be missing from the next Memory Cafe when that happened. So we have a group that meets 2 weeks before to plan. And I suggested, well, can we do a moment of silence? Because that was what I was thinking. But the group was fantastic. So we came up with much more than just a moment of silence. So, someone suggested, let's set up a table with a photo of him. Let's put a candle on there. And then someone mentioned that had been at his memorial that they had cookies there because he was, I guess, someone who loved cookies and couldn't walk past a cookie jar without grabbing one. So we baked his favorite cookies. And then we invited his wife, who was a regular. And then I encouraged her if she, if there was any family members that also wanted to join, for them to join us as well. And coincidentally, her grandkids are homeschooled, so they were actually available during the day because our Memory Cafe meets on a Thursday during the day. So her daughter-in-law and her grandkids, who you can see in this photo, came, and we just had an amazing experience. We picked, because we had his memorial service, the program from it, we actually were able to play some of the songs by some of his favorite musicians. And it was just an amazing opportunity for everyone. It was really within 2 weeks of him passing away. So it was very timely for the family as well. And it just really took a very painful moment and acknowledged it, and then really allowed all of us to celebrate his life and to be with each other. And at the very end, I'm going to get a little emotional right now. His wife came to me and gave me the biggest hug afterwards and just said, "Thank you so much." It was so meaningful to do that. So that's our little special moment that we had.
Dorothy, that is so special. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I think that this is something that cafe leaders often wrestle with, is how to acknowledge losses. And this is just an absolutely beautiful example of how you put something together and you supported your cafe participants in just kind of organically responding in the way that felt real to them, and how meaningful and moving it was. And it really also shows how deeply people feel your cafe is home to them. So thank you for that inspiration. That's really beautiful.
And thank you for giving us the opportunity to showcase some of these amazing experiences. And I've been inspired by the previous stories that I've heard. So, and unfortunately, death is a part of this experience. So, perhaps our experience might inspire some other cafes to celebrate the lives of the folks that they leave as well.
Thank you so much, Dorothy.
Thank you.
We have 2 more trivia questions and 2 more Memory Cafe moments. So first the trivial and then the profound. We're going to have one more question that is a little bit nerdy. This is a real Memory Cafe nerd question. What's the difference between the European model and the American model? But I don't mean cars, I mean memory cafes. Does anybody know this? I'm going to give folks a minute. I'm watching the chat to see if any responses come in. Good question. Is it medical involvement? You're heading in the right direction there, Nicole. Anybody else? They call theirs Alzheimer's Cafe. So the very first one that Dr. Meeson created was called Alzheimer's Cafe. Social prescribing is something that is established in a lot of countries, including where memory cafes originated in Europe. So that could be part of it. So these are all reasonable answers. Includes alcohol. That's interesting. It definitely isn't alcohol. Person living with dementia and care partner meet separately. That is a good guess, but it's not. Okay, John is on the money here. American model is more art and engagement, and I would say socializing. European is more sharing medical material and calling persons patients. So the European really involves education about dementia, and the American model focuses on socializing. That's really the main difference, is that the way cafes originated in Holland, there was a role for a medical professional, usually a public health nurse, who would be present and provide some education and could actually do some screening with people who were having symptoms as a first step to a diagnostic process. When the model came to America, the focus was more socializing. We don't generally have access to healthcare people to attend, and that just seemed to fit better with where people were. Now, Susan has an interesting point here. The ones in Great Britain emphasize the socializing part. So there may be more variation than this, but this is one framework that's out there, is European versus American. And Laura says our cafe is escape, social. Our support group engages in education and sharing. And I think that's a really common kind of way to frame the difference between memory cafes in the US and support groups. So again, that was a complete going down a memory cafe nerd rabbit hole. Thank you for following me down there. So now we have another Memory Cafe moment with Jane Miller. Are you with us, Jane, to unmute?
Right here. Got you, Beth.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. That was interesting. I call myself Grammar Jane Miller because I'm a retired journalist and a teacher. And I had no idea back in 2008 when our daughter and I and my therapy dog went into a personal care home to do group visits where we shared stories and engaged in crafts, that was Memory Cafe. But recently we've started a nonprofit, and it's called Rough Rider Books. And my favorite Memory Cafe moment from this last year was when a 100-year-old friend, as you see in the picture, her name is Betty Hoffman, and she's a retired journalist too, and she taught 2nd and 4th graders how to play the kazoo. Just a little bit about Rough Riders. It's not ROUGH, it's rough as in relationships, using facts and fiction. And it serves elderly and children through the kinds of sharing of activities that you would do with kids, picture books, crafting, and writing a little life story multi-generationally to help the kids on the literary thing, but not telling them. And it can be adapted and shared in the settings of libraries, schools, after schools, and the personal care homes like we started out in. These pictures are from the project that we did with the 2nd and 4th graders of a Butler County school in near Pittsburgh, and a senior independent living community. And once a month, starting last winter, parent volunteers drove the kids about a couple of miles to the home, or it was a high rise. And within 3 months, the participation increased to over 20 kids and over 20 residents that came down to, engage. We had a retired science and art teacher who did little lessons. And then at the end of the year, the kids created a book of memories that we presented to the home, or actually we'll present that next month when we start again. We also have a theme song with Rough Riders. It's called Lemons into Lemonade. And we didn't sing it yet, a little bit more complicated, but we tooted, because that's what you do with a kazoo, you toot into it. And we tooted songs that everybody knows, like Happy Birthday, or in April when it was pouring down rain, row, row, row your boat. We even had a couple of requests that, we navigated, although nobody knew how to do the Taylor Swift songs. So a group of girls volunteered and we all listened, enjoyed them performing Taylor Swift. We're just really getting started. In fact, we're changing the name of the project so I could send it to Beth later to send out in the group. It's gone from Rough Riders to Rough Rider Books. But if you're interested in piling it at your Memory Cafe, you'll be able to go on the link for New Sun Rising, which is a nonprofit umbrella, and download a sample. And the sample pertains with how you can gather stories about people's favorite songs. I mean, a lot of people, all generations, have an Elvis or a Beatles story to share. And you can also get the lyrics to Lemons into Lemonade. There's a craft template that'll be available for every month. They're all seasonally kind of attached. And of course, we have a dog theme for the month of October. And the craft for the music is to make a strip to go around a recycled water bottle that they can write a positive word. And so not only can you sing or toot, you can also shake along to your favorite song. We also have book templates that'll be available. They'll be themed by the seasons. And these are meant to be enhanced with colored pencils because there's that connection that you get between mind and hands that's a benefit, everyone, regardless of our age. The project's theme is that life can be rough, ROUGH, but the multi-generational moments that we can spend reading, listening, crafting, and writing can turn the rough times into a joyful one of rough, RUFF times. Thank you, Beth. If I can share that later, when I have the exact link in place.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh,
Thank
and I
you
need
so
to
much.
tell you one more thing. Our friend Betty just turned 101 last month. So this
Wow.
is the year of her Dalmatian birthday.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Jane. And thank you for all those amazing resources that you described and that you're making available. This is a beautiful thing that's happened over the years, is such creativity and heart in the people associated with memory cafes, and really a willingness to share. So thank you, and congratulations to Betty and to your program.
Thank you.
So now we have the last trivia question here. And I know some of you are going to get this right away. What is the most common location for a memory cafe in the US? The most common type of location at this point? Does anybody have a guess? Everybody's getting it right. I didn't even have to give you the clue. That's absolutely right, a public library. And that's a change. And that is amazing because a library is a place for people of all ages and backgrounds. And it's just I think, a wonderful testament to librarians and to people involved with dementia-friendly communities who have had really the thoughtfulness to consider the best ways to make cafes accessible. And there are a million wonderful settings for cafes, and I don't mean to be valorizing libraries above them all, but just to say that we really have seen libraries and librarians stepping up in the dementia-friendly community movement in general, and it's something to be celebrated. And Anne says in the chat, every library should have one, and that's definitely a goal that we can hold out. So now the last Memory Cafe moment, I want to ask, so Glenna Godinsky from Elgin, Illinois shared this, and she's not able to be here today. She's running a training at the same time, but she asked me to ask if any of the advisory council members from Dementia Friendly Elgin are with us and would like to read the story. Is anybody here from Elgin? Okay, so I have a backup plan, which is my wonderful colleague Jessica Roque has the Elgin story and is ready to read it. So why don't you go ahead, Jessica, and unmute.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
So from Elgin, so on June 14th, 2024, Dementia Friendly Elgin area hosted a global picnic for members of the Elgin Area Memory Cafe for English-speaking caregivers and loved ones with dementia, the Cafecito Entre Amigos Cafe for Elgin Spanish-speaking community, and the Chinese Mutual Aid Association for the Asian Language Memory Group, which includes Vietnamese, Cambodian, and Laotian. They had 85 people in attendance. We feasted on egg rolls, sesame buns, sandwiches, chips, salsa, fruit, and cookies. We had a professional DJ who coordinated with our professional salsa instructor, who specializes in getting people in wheelchairs and assistive devices moving. I was able to hand out joy for all animatronic cats and dogs to reduce anxiety in those with dementia, locking pill cases, sensory motion lights, and door alarms that were purchased by the Area Agency on Aging in Arcane County. This event brought us together and bolstered our pipeline of resources to multiple cultural communities across our dementia-friendly area.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jessica. And thanks to Glenna and her whole team. And let's hear it for Elgin, Illinois. What a great Memory Cafe moment to close out this section of our meeting, because it's another beautiful example of serving a whole range of cultural communities and languages, and how much fun everybody has when they share and come together like that. So thank you for sharing these Memory Cafe moments. If you feel inspired to share one, you can always send me an email and we can find a good way to do that, either through the Percolator Google group or at the next idea exchange. So now the very last part of our celebration is the premiere, that's the word you use, of a 3-minute video that Jessica, who you just heard from, created using lots and lots of photos and video clips that many of you sent in. And I think Jessica did a beautiful job. So I'm excited to show you. Many of you are going to see yourselves in this. You're going to see photos or video clips of yourself and your participants. If anybody expected to see themselves and they don't, I apologize. We might have been a few photos that didn't make it in, but we did our best and we loved what you shared. And I will share a link to this video after we watch it so that you can watch it again and share it with your own networks. So here we go, and enjoy.
A goal of Memory Cafe is to reduce isolation for both the person with memory loss and their caregiver. The Surgeon General noted that social isolation is as bad for your health as if you had 15 cigarettes a day. So our goal is to bring people with memory loss and their caregiver into a sense of community where they feel welcomed and they feel comfortable. At Memory Cafes, we focus on the person, not the disease.
The past 10 years of working with cafe leaders throughout the US and beyond have felt actually miraculous to me. So often we work in silos and we feel isolated, and the people we serve cope with isolation. But in sharp contrast to this, these 10 years of leading the Percolator have been all about connection and sharing. We started with a meeting in Waltham, Massachusetts in 2014, attended by 8 people. And we have grown to a network of over 1,500 people that has shared insights, questions, stories, and amazing ideas with one another with such generosity. Together, we have helped to grow the Memory Cafe movement and so many people living with cognitive changes or dementia and those who care about them have found joy and connections at memory cafes as a result. I want to thank JFNCS for investing in this program over the past decade, and I want to thank each and every one of you. And here's to what's next. All right. So that was our movie. I hope you liked it. Jessica put the link in the chat. You're welcome to share it. And thanks again, Jessica, for doing an amazing job putting that together. Well beyond my technical ability or comprehension, she did this incredible, wonderful piece for us. And thanks to everyone who sent in videos and photos. We had such a ball seeing them all and making use of them. And particularly a shout out to Heidi, who had this wonderful video she created for her cafe. And we just used a clip of it right at the beginning because it beautifully put into words what memory cafes are all about. So that closes out part one of today's idea exchange, our celebration. Thank you for celebrating with me and everyone. And I want to give you a couple minutes to stretch. And then we are going to dive into the National Strategic Plan for Memory Cafes preview. So don't touch that dial, don't go away, but do stretch for a minute. I'm going to do it. You're welcome to do it along with me. I'm going to stretch my arms up and wiggle my fingers. I'm going to bend down and touch my toes. I always like to do a little shimmy, do whatever feels good. Take a breath, and we will plunge ahead into part two of our meeting. So it feels really good to take stock and see where we've come, and now we get to see really what is being constructed to help us get to the next stage. I've been talking about EMC squared with you at the last several idea exchanges, and many of you have been reading the blog posts. Many of you have participated in the focus groups. So this is familiar to some, but not to everyone. So I will just give you a little backdrop of what EMC squared is and where it came from. It stands for Expanding Memory Cafes, Enhancing Meaningful Connection. And it is a strategic alliance with a job, which is to create a plan to dramatically and sustainably grow memory cafes in the US from 900 to 9,000. So we have about 900 right now. We'd like to have many more. We talked in the trivia about Wisconsin being the home of about 135 memory cafes. And we know there are many states in the US that have 1, 2, none. We know that there are many linguistic and cultural communities that don't have access to memory cafes in their nearby locality, or even one that they can zoom into that might be far away. And we know that there are places in the world that have a great density of memory cafes, and where it's just something that is part of the landscape for people who are developing cognitive changes. And we would like to see that be the picture throughout the US for everyone to access. You see here the webpage emcsquaredproject.org, and you can visit there to see a list of all the people who are part of the alliance that's been fostering this plan, and the blog posts that have described the progress. We continue to welcome international participation. So I think this is really important. We needed to focus our efforts, and I'll show you who is we. So Ann Basting is the brainchild behind this. Ann is with us today, along with Susan McFadden, founder of the Fox Valley Memory Project, author of the Wisconsin Memory Cafe Best Practice Guide, and many other important tools, and Sam Goodrich, who is the project manager they're all here today, and then myself. You know, we needed to focus, and we're focusing on tools for the United States. That said, there have always been participants from other countries in the Percolator, and there absolutely will be continued celebration of that international sharing in this learning community. I'll mention that in greater detail later. So, in addition to Anne, Susan, Sam, and myself, the Percolator has been a really important part of this development process. We've had a segment of the meeting of the idea exchange focused on the EMC squared planning work at each of our idea exchanges over the last year. There are focus groups and review teams who came through the Percolator and have really done some detailed exploration on different aspects of the plan. We've done 2 surveys of this network, and thank you to everyone who responded. There's also an alliance, and the idea was to have 1 Zoom screen worth of national or community-focused organizational leaders, including advocates living with dementia, who can help guide, but also help to implement a plan. And again, you can find those names and affiliations on the webpage. And then some additional experts who have bring specific wisdom and knowledge around linguistic and cultural diversity, branding and messaging, national training structures and platforms, social prescribing, evaluation, and web mapping platforms. So all these folks have come together to build the plan that we'll be previewing. And I really want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Mods Ventures of the Ferry Foundation for investing in this dream. And thank you to the Percolator focus group and review team participants whose names you see on screen. Grateful to you. So now to just go back and remind ourselves of what the whole purpose of this exercise has been. Let's remember the societal challenge. So there's approximately 18 million people in the US who are living with dementia or are the care partner of someone who is, and we know that number's growing quickly. Stigma contributes to isolation. Affordable, high quality residential care is out of reach for most. Culturally appropriate, enriching social programming in the community is not widely available. And all of these problems are significantly amplified by health disparities. And so the goal of EMC Squared's national plan is to equitably and sustainably grow the quantity and quality of memory cafes in the US to improve the quality of life of people living with dementia and those who care about them by reducing stigma and isolation. And over time, the Percolator has really heard from cafe leaders about what are the key challenges, and we asked you again last fall in a survey specifically to help guide the EMC squared process. And this is what we learned. The key challenges are promotion, raising awareness among the public, referral sources, and also people who might start a cafe. We asked recently about how to reach under-resourced communities, and one of the key findings that came out of that survey was that a lot of people just don't know about the cafe model or have information about how you might implement it. So we've got a lot of promotion work to do. Sustainable funding. Programming, what to do at a cafe, how to really make it the best it can be, and training, and trying to get consistency in quality of memory cafes through making sure that all of us have the kind of training that we would like. So what are some strategies to reach these goals? And we honed in first on the need for a reliable, accessible web presence. We'll talk more about that. To create a national training system that will be high quality and easily accessible. Create a national public awareness campaign. to support, when possible, the expansion of social prescribing, and embed this effort in a network of organizations and people with allied interests to ensure its vibrant continuity. And you can read more in on the EMC Squared website, but specifically this document is a theory of change. And Jessica, thank you for putting that PDF in the chat. So this is, I think, a really great way to get a better sense of the EMC Squared plan, but also a useful document for any memory cafe that's writing a grant or pitching to a funder and wants to be able to describe why memory cafes. And I just want to pause and say, Susan, Anne, and Sam, if any of you wants to weigh in at any point, please do, either in the chat or feel free to unmute and make comments that I may have missed. So again, international participation is always welcome. Some of the countries that have been active in the Percolator are Brazil, Barbados, Canada, Ireland, and Scotland. It's always really rich to have this kind of international cross-pollination. So I just want to briefly explain that the cafe directory that we'll be talking about in a minute is for US cafes only, and the public awareness campaign will really drive people to that website. But we are excited to continue to work with international friends as part of the learning community, and the training modules that we're developing will certainly be available to anyone who wants to use them. And we would like to also have a list of links to international directories, because we know that people in other countries, other provinces and regions and so forth, in many cases have their own directory. So let's talk about implementation of this plan so far. And I'm curious if anyone can guess what this image is meant to represent. I'll just give it a minute and we'll see. This might be something that makes sense in my brain, but is not that easy to guess. So I'll tell you, this is meant to be an image of flying the airplane while you're still building it. Yep, let's take off and fly with expansion, getting off the ground, the Wright brothers. I like all of this. I think whenever you're aiming big and you have changes that are multifactorial, there's always a moment where you got to get up in the air before everything feels completely ready. First flight, thank you, Amaris. So as I go through the parts of the plan, you're going to see this under construction symbol in many of them, because we are very much building as we go. So the first thing we did was to define the core principles of memory cafes. We have to know what it is that we're talking about and make sure that everyone is in agreement around a set of core principles. Now, memory cafes are extremely varied, and they should always be varied because they should be built for their local community, and every community is different. So this is my way of thinking about that, is the core principles should fit for all memory cafes, but around that, there's tremendous, beautiful variation. So we took that first step. We heard from so many of you. We got a lot of input and defined some core principles that everyone seemed to agree with, and you can find those on the EMC Squared project.org landing page. So from there, we began to work on this web presence that I mentioned. And I'm so excited to say that later this fall, we will have a soft launch of the next generation Memory Cafe directory, hosted by Dementia Friendly America. I know Leah Mann is here from Dementia Friendly America, and we thank them so much for taking on the role of hosting this directory. And I also want to give huge thanks to Dave Widerick. Are you here, Dave? Who built memorycafedirectory.com. It's an enormous amount of work to maintain a directory like this. And Dave has valiantly carried that on for years, and during the pandemic pivoted and created a page for virtual cafes, and really has created a foundation that we're then able to build from. So just to give you a sense of what is going to be new and improved with this new directory, hosted by a national nonprofit working in the dementia space. So that's Dementia Friendly America. So it's just wonderful that people will have a website to go to that will be relevant to them in so many ways. Reliable. So cafe leaders will be able to update their own listing whenever needed, and there will be a mechanism so that all cafe listings must be updated annually. This is really important because it's often hard for people to take this step of going to a memory cafe the first time, and even to try to find one. And if they find one and they call and the number's disconnected or the cafe's not meeting anymore, that's very discouraging. Likewise, if a medical person takes the step to make a referral and they find that the directory is not up to date, that has a chilling effect. So this is going to be very important functionality. The new directory will also promote quality. Cafe leaders will sign off on those core principles, and they're going to have access to free training modules once those are fully implemented. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. And the idea is that this directory will be an easy, simple interface for the public, for referral sources, and for cafe leaders. So stay tuned. Instructions on how to sign up in the new directory will be coming later this autumn. And for Massachusetts, we will transition our state directory to the national one. And that's also a victory, because one thing I've learned over the years is it's really good to have one directory. The more you duplicate, the more potential there is for mistakes and things to not be updated. So as we began to work on the directory, we realized we needed to ask, who are we? And, do some branding and logo development. So we had Ann Connell and Joe Hausch, branding and design experts, at two different Percolator idea exchanges. And they helped us to talk about the branding concept, put words to what memory cafes mean, and then to vote on possible logos, colors, and names. We looked at existing memory cafe logos. We created a word cloud that represented what cafes mean to all of you. And what we came up with your votes, was Memory Cafe Alliance, which is being trademarked. And so here you see the Memory Cafe Alliance logo with Dementia Friendly America. And the hope is that eventually you will choose to add it onto your flyer along with your own Memory Cafe branding. And that way there's something visually that identifies us as part of an alliance. So this is certainly voluntary, and it's not meant to replace any of your own branding, but to just be an extra marker that you can use to signal your alliance with the alliance. And we will share more about that as time goes. Just going to pause for a moment. So great question, Charlene. Can we start using it now? And Anne says, it will be licensed to those who sign up for the new directory. So stay tuned for instructions on how to sign up for the directory, and everything will flow from that point. So now I want to show you the one-stop shop that we envision for cafe leaders. And this seems like a lot, but I'm going to walk you through it. And then over time, we are going to be sharing the details as they are pertinent to you. But I just really want you to have the snapshot. So we know that a lot of cafes start as individual programs. In some cases, you have a network, a group of cafes. But in either case, what will happen is the Memory Cafe leader will log into the website once it's ready, the web page rather, and agree to the principles. So they'll check off the boxes to say, yes, we agree to these principles. They'll complete a form, which is basically creating their account. And then they will be given the opportunity to go through self-paced training modules. And I'll go into those in greater detail, but they can also jump past those because, of course, some of you have been running cafes for years and you don't need that training. We'll have what's called a knowledge check, which is sort of a little quiz that you can navigate through. It's not time consuming, but it just demonstrates that you basically are in agreement with and aware of the core operating principles of memory cafes. And so from there, you'll create an account and list your cafe or cafes in the directory. You can sign in at any time and update the listing. And so I just want to say a little bit more about this knowledge check. So when we were exploring this option and really thinking about it as a way to be able to kind of say that there's some consistency to cafes, there are sort of core elements that they all share, and that if, say, I'm a geriatrician and I want to make a referral to my patient, and I find a cafe in the directory, I can feel confident that that cafe will operate using dementia-friendly principles, for example, and be part of this sort of philosophical core. And so we tested this idea of the knowledge check with the Percolator focus groups, and we assumed, you know, not everyone might like the idea, but it was unanimous. Everyone in the 2 focus groups agreed that this should exist. So that was incredibly helpful because, you know, you all are here as a grassroots movement and our goal is to water the grassroots. It's to support you. So we felt a real mandate to go forward with that plan. I want to get into a little more detail about the training system. So the training modules will be available to all. So let's say you are the one who's going to list your cafe information in the directory, but maybe you have a co-leader for your cafe, or maybe you have colleagues at your organization who sometimes interact with your cafe, or maybe you have volunteers at your cafe. They all are welcome to go through the training modules if you'd like. As I mentioned, you can jump to the knowledge check at any point. As I said, the Percolator focus groups were totally in support of that. And the training modules are under construction right now. There are 3 modules, one on memory cafe operations, one on dementia and caregiving for the memory cafe context, and one on facilitation for the memory cafe context. These will be self-paced, free to all, inclusive and translatable, and we anticipate the launch in January. And we want to warmly thank the Brookdale Foundation for supporting these. And also, several of you are running a memory cafe that's participating in some filming, video recording of footage to be used in these trainings. And so we thank you very much. Just want to pause for a minute and see if Sam, Ann, or Susan has anything you want to add. Okay, we'll keep moving. So let's talk more about training. Now, when we did the survey of this network last November and asked you, what kind of training do you like to have? What we heard is that 72% of you like to learn with a cohort. And this was 156 of you responded last November. So thank you to everybody who took the time to do that. So we took that to heart and we wanted to think about some kind of cohort system that could be built around these self-paced modules. So our idea was that some people would just go through and look at it on their own, do the self-paced, and others would really want to be part of a cohort if one were available. And so we really have been thinking about how to make that work, how to make it fundable, and how to make sure that it reaches the goal of supporting under-resourced communities. So again, a lot of information on this slide. I'm going to give you a summary of it. The idea of the cohort is that there would be a certain amount of funding that would be covered by a funding entity. Some of it would be for the cafe leaders who participate in the cohort to support their time and help them launch their cafe. So our vision is that each would receive $5,000 and that up to 20 cafe leaders would meet in a cohort on Zoom or another virtual platform once a month for 5 months. In between meetings, they would go through the self-paced training modules. There might be, other curriculum materials shared depending on needs and interests. There would be some expert coaches available, perhaps who have experience working with a given cultural community or a particular sector and could add some of that knowledge. At the end of this, each trainee would be verified in the directory, and the other resources that are part of this model would go to support the cohort facilitator and the overall system. So again, these would be live virtual meetings that would wrap around the self-paced modules. And we can imagine that there would be, sometimes geographic cohorts, perhaps culturally based cohorts, perhaps sector-based cohorts. And this would be something that we could really try to engage the philanthropic community in supporting, because it's so concrete and it's a way that they could really make cafes more available based on their own priorities. So this is under construction. We're currently designing this and seeking funding to launch a cohort training curriculum and development of training hubs, which would really help to push out the cohort opportunity. Let's take a little bit of a snapshot of what this hub vision is. So these would be organizations that have demonstrated excellence in working with under-resourced communities in adult learning, and also deep knowledge of memory cafes. And their role would be to promote, coordinate, and facilitate and evaluate cohorts. We are envisioning a train the trainer curriculum that the cohort facilitators would be trained in. And the grand vision is a hub in every state one day, maybe even more, maybe in some states, more than one hub. And right now, this is just a grand vision. It's under construction, and we are actively seeking funding to develop this training hub model. So we envision a 2-year period of funding to help develop and implement this, along with some of the other administrative components of the plan. So just taking a step back, questions we ask ourselves throughout this year of planning, we keep asking ourselves, how will memory cafes spread in under-resourced communities? And how will we get from 900 to 9,000 cafes over a 10-year period? So we keep kind of putting our feet to the fire to make sure that what we're developing is actually able to do that. And I see some interest in the chat in various aspects of this, which is fantastic. So I just want to delve a little bit into the focus on under-resourced communities. Thanks to 101 of you who responded to a survey in August, which is always kind of a difficult time to get people to do something like that, but you did, and we thank you. And what we saw is really what we've known all along, which is that inclusivity is a core principle of all cafes, and that a lot of cafe leaders would like training to support this. So a lot of people commented in the survey, our cafe is open to everybody. there are some communities that we are not reaching, and we don't know how, or we've tried, we haven't gotten anywhere. So this is definitely an area where cafe leaders would like some training on different approaches that have been effective, kind of ideas about how to actually bring it into being that you would expand who you're serving at your cafe. And second, there is a need for community-specific cafes. So we heard a couple of memory cafe moments earlier about cafes that are held in a particular language or really geared to a particular cultural community or communities. In some cases, it's a group of cultures and languages. There is a need for that because everyone should feel like their cafe is home. And so again, the importance of the cohort model and funding for cohorts is that this creates a mechanism where you could say, you know, we really want to get 20 Spanish-speaking cafes going in, you know, this particular region of the country where there's a big Spanish-speaking population and very few cafes, for example. So it creates a mechanism where that could be done at scale. And also it brings us back to the wide need for that public awareness campaign so that we can make sure that people who are doing dementia-friendly work all over the country in so many communities are aware that there's such a thing as a memory cafe and that there's resources and training out there. And encouragement of adaptation of the cafe model to fit the cultural context. So just to underscore what I said before, that every cafe should look different. It should look like its local community. Thank you to everybody who's expressing enthusiasm in the chat about the hubs. That's great. So we also saw from this survey that some of the key networks to reach under-resourced communities include faith communities, clergy alliances, community-specific networks, public health providers, local businesses, and social prescribing, which we hope will take root and spread in the United States and help to tap into some of the resources of the healthcare system and really break down that wall between healthcare and social care. So let's talk for a minute about the public awareness campaign. When I was putting this slide together, I wanted to do it, but I felt like I'm really preaching to the choir here because you all really, really know how important it is to get the word out more broadly about memory cafes. But just to even put some specifics on that, only 4% of respondents to our November 2023 survey said that most of the public health and social care providers in their area are aware of memory cafes. Only 4%. So it's, you know, it's because we operate on a shoestring budget, and it's because people don't talk openly about dementia. So it's really, really been hard to get the word out, especially beyond our sectors. Our June 2024 survey, which focused on under-resourced communities, identified lack of familiarity with memory cafes as a major obstacle. There were also AARP led some brain health initiative focus groups, and those showed lack of familiarity with memory cafes. And it's really interesting when you ask a bunch of people who've never heard of memory cafes what they are, they often think that it's a place where you're supposed to get memory training and, you know, build skills to combat dementia. It's really, there's really a gulf there where people don't naturally think of it as being about social connection and quality of life. It's more kind of a deficit-based assumption. And again, Percolator participants have identified outreach and attendance as their #1 challenge for the past 10 years. So have I convinced you? Yeah, I'm sure I have. We need a public awareness campaign. And this is one of the pieces that's under construction. The EMC Squared team is talking with potential partners and we're really hoping to move forward with momentum here. And so stay tuned on that. I just want to point out that the Percolator is still here. We are continuing to host the Google group. We are continuing to host idea exchanges. I do anticipate that this will evolve organically, that we want Dementia Friendly America to ultimately be the home of the learning community, just to sort of have things under one roof. We may find that once the training modules are up and running, we make the idea exchanges a bit briefer or less frequent. We will see. This has been an organic process for 10 years, and it will continue to be. The Percolator Toolkit and other resources are and will still be available for download. And what we're doing as we build these training modules is having a list of other resources where those links will also be available. Just going to take a moment and check the chat here, making sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. So John, your comment is, have you discussed the relationship of promoting the memory cafe concept and growing the number of memory cafes with the relationship with the larger question of the world seeing non-drug programs like memory cafes as true therapy or even treatment for dementia? So I think this is one of those subtle and important areas that, you know, we focus on the impact of memory cafes in reducing social isolation. That doesn't mean there aren't additional benefits. And it could be the case that there are other measurable outcomes. I think there is no ceiling on what we could potentially measure and try to establish in terms of the benefit of memory cafes. I think for starters, we probably need to stay focused on what has been supported the most strongly by research, which is really the impact on social isolation. Because we're in a context where so many people don't even know what a memory cafe is. But I think it's really important to keep that broader goal on the radar screen. If anyone else wants to comment on that, I'm just going to pause for a moment. Anne points out we need research on the impact on a range of behavioral health, such as depression, anxiety, etc. Yeah, we still, there hasn't been a large multi-site evaluation of memory cafes. And there's a lot of opportunity. I'm going to frame it that way. And I really do see it that way. And I feel like the more we build these national structures and raise the profile of memory cafes, the more likely it is that researchers will come along and say, here's an amazing opportunity, and I'm going to apply for a grant and put together, collaborate with a group of cafes and help us build that evidence base. So once again, there's so many interconnected goals here, but I think building some of these structures is really foundational, because otherwise people don't know memory cafes exist, and there's not enough consistency and reliability in the ability to find them. And Charlene comments, local news media ought to be jumping on with PSAs and human interest stories. But when I'm reaching out to media, they all want money for publicizing the cafes, and we don't have the funds for that. So this is a very significant challenge. And the concept for this public awareness campaign is to create short videos and other resources that are targeted to specific audiences, and that we can then put in the hands of all the cafe leaders to be able to share them and push them out, as well as tapping in to some national partners that have some good channels for sharing the information. So very aware of the challenge, and we will keep in touch with you as we move forward in crafting a way to achieve this goal. So here's this picture again, and you know, really where we are is that the airplane has lifted off while construction continues. And we will be getting input on this plan from the EMC Squared Alliance and making adjustments in upcoming weeks. And then Ann Basting, along with Mary Eck from Dementia Friendly America, will be presenting it at the Grantmakers and Aging Conference in mid-October. You know, and really making the case this is what they call a shovel-ready proposal for a funder who's excited about making memory cafes much more widely available. So if any of you knows a funder who might love this opportunity, please reach out, because we are in that sort of networking mode of really trying to find the funders that want to help bring this to fruition. So I want to stop my share so we can see each other and just open it up. We have about 15 more minutes. That was a ton of information that I just shared. We have the other EMC Squared leads with us, and I welcome anyone to share questions, ideas, whatever you got. The easiest way would be if you could use the hand raise function, but you can also just unmute yourself and jump right in. Susan, Ann, Sam, anything you want to add?
I was just going to address the question about the dollar ask, the financial structure of the way we're setting this up. The first, there's multiple asks going on. There's the design of the cohort curriculum, which we have before a foundation already. So we have our fingers crossed, everybody, sprinkle whatever magic dust you have, that funding will come through. We should find out in the next week or so. And then the second one is the design of the train the trainer and the training hubs. And we're looking at that as a 2-year funding period, where we're funding someone to design and launch the hubs in collaboration with just a small group, like four or five maximum first tier training hubs. Then once we get that curriculum designed, we can open up the training hubs much more broadly. So that's actually a relatively big ask, because we also have to manage the transition with the launch of the directory and the Google groups, and sort of the individual pathway, that free and open training pathway. So that's a $500,000 over 2 years to fund, so $250,000 a year to launch the training hub program. The trainings themselves are, the ask is $15,000 per memory cafe to go through the cohort process. So if a foundation, say, wanted to support sorry, that's my dog, the creation of 10 memory cafes in a community, that would be $150,000. The $15,000 breaks into $5,000 going to the trainees to support their time, which we feel is an ethical component of getting this out to under-resourced communities who do not have the time or wherewithal to sort of find the training, get the money themselves, do all these things. So that $5,000 we feel is really crucial toward the equitable expansion of the cafes. $3,000 would go to DFA, the Dementia Friendly America, which would support the directory, the maintaining and updating of the training modules and the Google groups. And then $7,000 would go to the training hub to do all of that promotion, selection, management, facilitation, evaluation of the cohort group. So that's the $15,000 per memory cafe that would go through the cohort process. And we're talking about between 10, no more than 20. We're big believers in single Zoom screens. And so no more than 20 per cohort. Does that answer your question as far as the financial ask? Yeah.
Thank you, Anne. And I'll go to Dorothy in a moment and then Susan. I just want to underscore a couple of key points, which is what Anne is describing is meant to be funded by philanthropy, and it would be for being part of the cohort. So to just sign up for the directory and access those self-paced training modules, there is no cost. We know that memory cafes don't have budgets for this kind of thing. So I just want to make clear, the hope is that we're creating a structure that foundations would want to support and be able to support, and that could help support the people starting the memory cafes. So Dorothy, you're up next.
Yes, I just have a quick question about social prescribing. Can you just like someone explain what that is in just a couple sentences? I don't want to take too much time because I think some of the other conversations are much more important.
Sure. So social prescribing is a simple concept. It's that a healthcare provider would be able to actually write a prescription for someone to go to a social care program like a memory cafe, or go to a museum or a concert, something like that, that has a measurable impact benefit to their health and well-being, but traditionally hasn't been something that anyone ever wrote on a prescription pad. Traditionally, what we get prescribed is medication or medical, types of intervention. And social prescribing is very well established in many parts of the world, but it's new to the United States. That said, we all do it all the time, in that we all, talk with our local, primary care practice and say, here's flyers for my memory cafe, please tell people about them. Or maybe there's a geriatrician who knows about our program and cares about it, and once in a while sends people to us. But it's really hard to find the time to do that. That's just us trying to pull together the time. And then it's really hard for the healthcare folks to have time to think about, oh, yes, I should tell this person about the Alzheimer's Association. I should tell them about the Lewy Body Dementia Association. I should tell them about the Memory Cafe down the street. It just doesn't happen usually. So Art Pharmacy is a company that's an intermediary, and they have navigators who actually do the matchmaking and follow up and make sure the match is good. And the money comes from health insurance plans primarily, some large medical practices. Thank you, Sam, for putting Art Pharmacy's link in the chat. And they have a really nice little kind of cartoon guide to show how it works.
There's multiple components of social prescribing, and we actually take some of the national plan to explain a bit of the history and what we mean by social prescribing. There's the just information component of it, where someone is just telling you about the program. And the directory is really designed to make that as easy as possible, that there'll be a PDF, printable file that can go directly into someone's electronic medical records, which is really ideal to make that easy for the prescribing network. With the new 400 guide programs, this is really ideal timing for social prescribing, because that's exactly what those guide programs are built to do, which is connect caregivers to resources in their communities. There's unfunded social prescribing, which is the communication networks. there's philanthropic funded social prescribing, and then there's social prescribing that actually draws from insurance. So there's different kinds, and it can be a little confusing, but I think some of the resources that people have been sharing really help make that a little clearer.
And the concept is that, depending on the model, the concept is that there would be some money that goes with the patient to help support the program. Susan.
Okay, so I just want to give us a broader perspective on all of this, and have us think about where we are right now. We're less than 6 years away from the year 2030. And that is a year that demographers have been talking about for as long as I've been teaching about aging, which is 50 years. And in 2030, the last of the baby boomers are going to be 65. And that has been the narrative that has been told about that is doom and gloom. We're going to have all these baby boomers aging, and we're going to have all these people with dementia, and it's just going to be terrible. And so that's been portrayed as a kind of dreadful tipping point. But I think this discussion today and what everybody on this discussion is doing, we are creating a different kind of tipping point. We are creating a world in which we are reducing dementia stigma, where we are including people living with dementia and care partners in our communities, where we are seeing that memory cafes, which all of you are doing so fabulously, are a part of a dementia-friendly community. And that's one of the reasons why we're so excited to be transitioning this directory over to Dementia Friendly America, because we see these things as linking up. So, thinking back to what you did at the beginning of this meeting today, Beth, by showing those exciting programs in different memory cafes, I mean, that demonstrates the possibilities that we all have to push back against this terrible dementia stigma that has been burdening so many people and communities for such a long time.
Thank you, Susan. Beautifully said. And I see Lori. Before I go to you, Lori, I want to respond to a question from Anne Marie, and I thank you for this question because we've gone over a lot of information and it could be confusing. So the 2 years we've been talking about is an implementation period for some of these national structures that we're conceptualizing. It's not for people starting a cafe. So people are free to start a cafe whenever they feel ready, just as it's always been. No one will monitor that process. This is still participating in any of these structures is voluntary. But the cohort is, we imagine it as a 5-month process, and that probably most of the people who take part aren't running a cafe yet, but there might also be some who are, but they are wanting it to be better and they want to be part of this process. It's up to those individuals when they decide to open the doors and say, okay, our first meeting is on, October 1st. There's not a required sort of dose of training prior to that, just to clarify. Go ahead, Lori.
Forgot to unmute. I'm sorry. It's so great to see everybody. 2 things. One, I wanted to also encourage people to include multi-generational, and I know a lot of people do, but one of the ways that I'm doing that is I'm bringing in students that are going through healthcare training programs, like nurses and OTs and PTs and physician assistants, to get in some volunteer hours. So it helps us to get those healthcare professionals to understand what dementia is all about and ingrain some of that education into their programs, which they don't always get much. And in their training. So that was one thing that I thought would be helpful for building on our volunteer base. The other thing is that I wanted to, I did share the link for the NAPA, the National Alzheimer's Project Act is up for renewal. And I just wanted to remind everybody to make sure that they let their representatives know that we need their support to renew that, because a lot of the funding that goes to community programs comes out of that.
Thank you so much, Lori, on both of those fronts. Appreciate that very much. Anne?
I was just going to say that both the public awareness campaign, identifying different audiences, is part of the plan for the public awareness campaign. And one of them is the volunteer network through universities and colleges and high schools, as well as other volunteer networks of, say, older adults or all kinds of different volunteer networks. Because people need to know about memory cafes before they can volunteer at them. So that's a big one. So I love that, of course, coming out of a university system, just having recently retired. I love the idea of creating powerful pipelines between, and also not only should every library have a memory cafe, but every university should be hosting one, because then their students don't even need to face transportation issues to get there to help coordinate the cafe. And universities have all kinds of programming opportunities in them for cafes as well. Was that all I was going to say? Oh, we're really thrilled. We keep having ongoing meetings with the Dementia Friendly America crew, and yesterday was one of them. And we're exploring ongoing opportunities for integration. And one of those just made me think of it, that last comment, is the availability and the direct linkability to the Dementia Friends training, which is so simple. And also now the Friends and Family for Creative Engagement is now, from Timeslips, is now available on the DFA website as well. Those are really valuable tools for volunteers to go through before volunteering in a memory cafe. So just wanted to say that.
Thanks, Anne. And we're just about at time. So I think I'm going to take this moment to thank you all and let you know that I will go through the chat, because there's been a lot of links shared and a lot of great comments and ideas. And I know we didn't get to focus on all of them. You know, this is really a amazing group of people. And I just feel that somehow people involved with this work seem so collaborative and so creative, that it is always an incredible pleasure to be here on Zoom with you, and even sharing some really kind of complex nitty-gritty, you know, building the airplane while still flying it. This has been, even with that, this has been a really energizing conversation for me. And I think that we have a lot of exciting next steps. I think we're already in an amazing place, and we will continue to navigate our way at the pace of trust. I love that saying, change happens at the pace of trust. So know that your voice matters, that this is really about each and every one of you and the communities that you serve. And let's keep the information really flowing. And stay tuned for more to come about the soft launch of the directory, which will really be the first concrete, a new wonderful thing. That's the word I'm going to use, wonderful thing, that I think you will see that will make a tangible difference in what you're doing in the Memory Cafe world. So thank you all for being here. Stay in touch. We'll hope to see you again on Zoom in December, but you'll hear from me many times before then. Take good care, everybody. And thanks to everybody who shared stories and photos. Bye-bye.
Congratulations, Beth.